Thanks a lot, Charlie. The Nashville Predators return to Bridgestone Arena tonight to face the best team in the entire NHL, the Boston Bruins. And while after the first period, a 1-0 deficit didn't seem that difficult to overcome, Boston quickly found their footing in the second period, charging to a 4-0 lead and eventually a 5-0 victory. And in a game where nothing seemed to have gone right at all, except for maybe the play of UC Saros, despite letting in 5 goals, this team was just not able to keep up. Didn't even look like they belonged on the same sheet of ice as the Boston Bruins. And one of the reasons why they got off to such a hard start and put themselves at a disadvantage is because this team has been notorious for starting off slow. And starting off slow is going to be the topic of tonight's One Big Stat. Now, it's no surprise to many of you, or all of you really, that Nashville is a team that takes a while to get started in almost every game. We saw plenty of games so far this season, most recently the one against Vegas, where Nashville struggled to get any shots on the board and came very close to setting a record for least amount of shots in a game. But that's something that's been pretty consistent. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to see how teams compared as far as how they started the game. So I used the benchmark of just getting to double-digit shots on goal. So just getting to 10, and what is the average time it takes a team to get to 10 shots on goal. So let's take a look at the numbers. As you can see here, Nashville is 28th in the NHL. They don't, on average, they don't get their 10th shot on goal until about a minute and a half into the second period, which is not great. If you look at teams like Boston, who they just played tonight, they're sitting at 8th, and they get that 10th shot in about 18 and a half minutes. So you can see that there's a definite difference, and you can see a lot of the good teams there up in the top are teams that are, scoring often and early, and Nashville just isn't doing that. And it's in company with teams like the Flyers, the Columbus Blue Jackets, Arizona, Chicago. Not a good group of teams you want to be kind of bunched in there with. But does this have any difference on how the team performs out on offense? Yeah, there's a pretty strong relationship. If you see here, running along left to right is just the average time, like we looked at in the last chart, but along the left side is the amount of goals scored per hour by these teams on average. And you can see right now, just looking at this, that there's the good teams up in the top left corner, they're getting 10 shots on net pretty quickly, and they are scoring to back it up. These bad teams in the bottom right quadrant, starting with probably Nashville and Philadelphia, these are teams that are taking forever to get to 10 shots because they're being outplayed, and they're scoring almost a goal less per hour than those teams on the left side. So what does that mean for Nashville? Well, in the past, Nashville has kind of used one strategy, and that is that they don't take nearly as many shots, but they try to increase the quality of the shots that they do take, as opposed to the other strategy we've seen, where it's take a whole lot of shots and none of them are really high quality on their own and just hope something goes in. And again, with a team like Nashville against high-powered teams, the New Jerseys, the Bostons, those types of teams, they just aren't producing. They can try and play pretty good defense. They know they can rely on UC Saros to be pretty good, but the defense has been uncharacteristically bad this season. I mean, much worse than what we're used to seeing from this team, especially a team that prides itself on defensemen. But Nashville has got to figure out how to get started earlier, because they've got nothing to show for it on offense, and a lot of times they're just bleeding points on defense. And they either require UC Saros to have just a stellar, outstanding, inhuman type of game to keep them in it, or a sudden outburst of offense that doesn't seem to stick on for the next game. So 2 games after the All-Star break, and Nashville is not looking good. The heat is on David Poile and John Hines. And watching around the league at former Predators succeeding in other places, it's hard to imagine that this fan base could be any more disappointed and angry with this team. And you know what, in my opinion, for good reason. But you already know that, and we'll have plenty more to say about that, because after last night, leaving the arena, I have not seen a fan base leaving an arena as angry as they did last night. And honestly, even though it still seemed about halfway full towards the end of the game, and in a 5-0 loss, I'd say about 60% of the fans tonight were Boston Bruins fans. And that's something you just never want to see, especially not here in Nashville. And that's tonight's One Big Stat. Charlie?